very good evening to each and every one of you. Good night, folks, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome in the ring. Ringsiders, happy to have you guys here with us. Share the live and smash that emoji button for us. Wherever you're joining us from this evening, it's a privilege to have each and every one of you here. So much happening. We were coming on and we saw some commentary on T. Muhammad's page, and they're still trying with him some story now with some invoice, some bill, some receipt from someplace. I have no doubt the Muhammads can take care of this up. But saw that as we were coming on. We got a lot happening, folks, in our country over the next week. We have that illegal, null and void of no legal effect election in the Essequibo, or for the Essequibo, by the Venezuelans. The most dastardly, reprehensible act. We just want to make that clear right off the bat. We got a lot of things happening internally. And then we have to fend off the Venezuelan enemy. It's not all Venezuelans are the same. Some folks in Venezuela hate that Maduro and his regime are pursuing this interest. But it's being pursued nonetheless. And us Guyanese, look, we got to take this matter very serious, Now it's not time for concerts and jump up and wind down and backball and all that. Very, very serious times. And it would seem as though this government, they're in a hurry and a flurry, in these grave times. And then once the danger seemingly passes, Roxy and Andrew and Marilyn Mark, right? Let us know if you're hearing us clearly. Once the danger passes, it's back to square one. There's a reversion to the status quo. So we're going to be talking about that this evening, folks. We're going to be talking about that this evening. I have a guest who's going to be joining me this evening. Leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. The C is for Compton. Norton will be joining us. He's a man who spent part of his life in the foreign services, foreign relations, foreign affairs, in the foreign services. And we're going to be picking his brain on a couple issues tonight. How I look? Leader of the opposition come by. You got to make sure you're together, So we're going to be talking about that. But before we get down to that side, your little corner shop show is usually on a Thursday. And as it were, you had the corner shop show today. Corner shop show. This issue of the Venezuelan aggression, incursions, infractions came up. Reina and Joel and Janice, I see some folks saying no sound. Folks, let us know if you're hearing us loud and clear. We're getting sound at our end. Everett says loud and clear. Some people are saying no sound, and Everett says loud and clear. And the meters here, they jump in, the lights and so on. It says the sound going out. Sound out, say yes, he's jumping. Up and down, up and down. But y'all let us know, we don't want anything. Paul says loud, Abida says loud. Vanessa says I'm hearing. So, look, if you got a big back TV still, you know what you got to do. You got a big back TV, You don't catch Facebook and so on in the Mango Pelter. So don't. Or even if it's doing the Mango Pelter, you got to pelt it wrong a couple of times. But not to digress, the folks said they're hearing us loud and clear. Thank you guys so much. We had a press conference today. The Corner Shop Show, a.k.a. the Vice President. And the question was asked. And I never see Hannah have a question so quick yet. Never did they canoe board, but I see Hannah have a question so quick. He's a man who's know everything. This morning we got up to the news that there were 3 attacks on our soldiers. Now this thing getting a little out of hand now. This thing is getting a little out of hand now. Folks, share the live for us. Smash that emoji button as well. Please and thank you. Smash that emoji button. Penelope, you share the live. Loyat and Wilma, Audrey and Julian, share the live for us, folks, that others can get the valid and credible information. If people sharing their lies, not the live, their lies, LIS, sharing that. How much more we who know the truth? How much more we? Charmaine and Shamar and Anne-Marie, Rena and Erwin, Deborah, good to have all of you. Anne-Marie, good to have all of you on the live tonight. Share the live, folks. This is what the fellow said when he was posed this question about the incursions and the attack on all soldiers and so on. Here, there's a man who knows Muhammad's business fine. But when it comes to matters at home.
On the GDF matter, I think the GDF, the Chief of Staff, I spoke with him earlier today. At 5 p.m. today, he has a press conference, so he will be addressing those matters directly. Yes, he will address the matters comprehensively.
Yeah. He will address the matter comprehensively. I think he should just say he can address the matter. I didn't think it qualified for the comprehensively part. Right? He will address the matter, right? He will address the matter. How he will address it comprehensively. So comprehensively is the adverb. Am I right? Remember parts of speech. Telling you how the thing will be done, you know. And the adverb to qualify sometimes end in ly. Comprehensively. That's how you think I drop? Drop. I know one or two things. Somewhere some English teacher there. if I got it right, you know. Comprehensively. I don't think he addressed the matter. Chief of Staff. Right? The Chief of Staff. That's it. I know this Chief of Staff. I know it shifts around a little bit. All right. He had a press conference today. Addressed this man. It was more like, to me, like was like pulling teeth. I heard them ask him about the black box report. What happened to it? He said they own something and somebody else do something, and they gotta wait now to bring the two some things together and make it one something, and then we gonna know 2 years out. Folks, something is amiss here. Jack don't really hand off questions. Mind you, he's just a vice president. He's not the commander in chief. He said, I spoke with Omar Khan. He's gonna have a press conference at 5 o'clock. Comprehensive. He had a press conference. Let's give him that. He had a press of folks. Whether you deem it comprehensive is another story. Here are some highlights on the subject matter of the Venezuelans and their incursions and attacks on our soldiers. Reprehensible. And they have to be brought to account for that. Some of what the Chief of Defense Staff, I think that's the new designation. Chief of Defense Staff. So what he said in that press conference today, Brigadier Omar Khan.
Obligation. Soldiers, members of the Ghana Defense Force to protect our territorial integrity and our people. This is a mission we take seriously, and we will continue to patrol that same area and to eliminate any threat to our people and any incursion to our territory. Moving forward, the Ghana Defense Force will remain vigilant and will continue to patrol the Koyuni River. It's an area that we have noted over the years where these armed men would stop civilian boats and extort monies to traverse the river. You would have seen in the orientation the description of our border. I want to go on record to say that Venezuelan people are peaceful people on the border. The Guyanese people are peaceful people. They're beautiful people. And they do not, in that community, pose a threat.
Bluntly, what should we be prepared for in the event that Venezuela takes it seriously, comes across to our border to hold an elections?
This is almost like a passive coup because you're voting in a foreign government to have or seek territory. So that would be a serious offense.
Would you say if these civilians were indeed military people but dressed as civilians to provoke a confrontation or provoke a response from Guyana, given Venezuela's posture, May 25th, 26th, and how equipped are our soldiers on the border there, that's in the Cuyuni area, given the fact that we saw
The expectation of one being fired upon is always there. In the first incident, fire was returned. In the second, was returned. The third and the fourth, same. And if you note me saying that in this last 3 incidents, no one from our side were injured. We are still, and I'm going to speculate, but there are many things that we are looking at and assessing. We expect Venezuela not to violate our sovereignty, but we are prepared for any eventuality. And that's why we continue to patrol the entire border. So, I would tell you, the Ghana Defense Force is not a force of uniform alone. You are part of the Ghana Defense Force. Every citizen, if you love Guyana, and I know you love Guyana, you will help me and the Ghana Defense Force to help you and to help all of us. And if I should add, this rank I wear on my shoulder is not an authority over you or the populace. This rank I wear gives me the authority to manage the people under my command and the resources, to optimize and employ it and deploy it to serve you and protect you. And we can get better if you help me do that.
But you preserve your answer request.
We arrest you and deport you.
Okay.
Yes, Venezuelans, yes. Mm-hmm. You can't vote in a country of yours and come to our country.
I love Guyana very much. That's why I'm asking you for an update on the helicopter crash report.
I will make that available when the official report comes.
Yeah. Some highlights from the press conference today. I told you I didn't I know they had a press conference, the comprehensive part. I'm not too I'm gonna hold out for a little bit. I'm gonna hold out for a little while longer on that particular aspect of it. You're not facetious like that. I reserve the right to hold out on that for a little bit. So that happened today. Folks, we're edging down to this election, this bogus, fraudulent election. It's like an internal PP election. It's set. This goes on the 25th. For our Essequibo. I know the government and acting the part with any kind of urgency, alacrity, but it's happening. Venezuela have already said to the ICJ, the National Court of Justice, shush about, we ain't gonna time with you. Maintain the status quo. And Russia is we friend and China and so on. Nonsense. So folks, today, the leader of the opposition put out a very substantive statement on this issue of the Venezuelans, their incursions, their assault. A very, very substantive statement on that. And then when we come back on the other side of that statement, we're going to talk with the man himself, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey Compton Norton. We're going to do that. That being said, folks, take a look, take a listen.
In the opposition, are aware that the arbitral award of 1899 settled the question of the border between Guyana and Venezuela. Essequibo belongs to us, and we will continue our constant support to ensure Essequibo continues to be the property of Guyana. We support the case before the ICJ, and we believe that we will have a positive outcome. And it is our view that all parties should honor the outcome of the judgment at the ICJ. We support our soldiers in their quest and efforts to protect Guyana's territorial integrity. We wish, of course, they were given more resources to do so. We denounce Venezuela's so-called elections in the Essequibo. There can be no such elections. No Guyanese should be voting or be allowed to vote in such an election. Such an approach is a violation of international law, and we support the actions to be taken to ensure that there are no elections held in the Essequibo, which belongs to Guyana. It is ridiculous as far as we are concerned that while the Venezuelans are seeking to hold an election purporting to have governors in the Essequibo, the Guyana government is inviting us to a concert. It makes absolutely no sense. It is ridiculous. We have made a number of proposals to the government in previous debates in the parliament and in meetings with the president, all of which the government failed to honor. We were aware that Venezuela is going to have this elections or sham for an elections, and we did absolutely nothing. But now suddenly telling us about a concert and a motion in parliament. We have passed a motion before with clear things that should be done, and the government failed to do it. And so we cannot continue to support a government that is inactive on the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy and seems to only come alive when Venezuela acts up. That is unacceptable. You know, as the opposition, we have continuously give our support to the government. But the government refuses to engage the opposition. They even had the audacity, as they're planning their concerts, etc., to not involve even the opposition-controlled regions. They did it all by themselves. But now coming to tell us that we must support a resolution, a motion in Parliament, that makes no sense to us. In my meeting with the President, the issue of the handing over of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs to the opposition was raised. And we were told that a meeting will be convened and Amanzo Walton would have become the chairman of that parliamentary committee. Up until now, no action has been taken to hand over the Foreign Affairs Committee. Yet you now come seeking our assistance and cooperation. We don't intend We don't intend at all to provide you with the opportunity for optics. We want genuine involvement if we are to confront the problems facing the people of Guyana, especially as it relates to the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. There have been no serious meetings to even discuss a plan. Yes, we made many proposals, and you didn't respond to them, but you failed also to convene meetings so that we can discuss critical national issues. As a government, you refuse to put our representatives on boards. The president wrote me as leader of the opposition, indicating he wanted to set up the local government commission. We send our nominees in since last year, and they have not done so. They are showing no interest in being inclusive. They continue to be divisive, and we believe moving forward, unless the government is prepared to engage the opposition in a meaningful way, we cannot continue to cooperate with them. Apart from their treatment of the opposition as it relates to the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy, we are now embroiled in a situation in which there's the murder of an 11-year-old child. And this government refuses to invite a reputable international organization to investigate. I say to you, the people of Guyana, to the government, if the government has nothing to hide, if the police has nothing to hide, why would you not want a reputable international organization to investigate the death of Adriana Young? That is a question you must answer. And to add insult to injury, you picked up a lot of innocent Guyanese, charged them under a terrorism law, and have them languishing in the prison just because you have control over the police, and there are citizens out there who might not have the level of representation. We have sought legal assistance, and we will seek to ensure that those persons are released. Let it be clear, we do not support looting and violence. But at the same time, we cannot support you charging young men for terrorism who are involved in looting. They must be charged under the appropriate law. This government is just dictatorial. They are totalitarian. They believe they must control the total lives of the people of Guyana. We cannot and will not allow it. The misuse of the terrorism law must come to an end. In the light of the foregoing, we will continue our support for the people of Guyana in this controversy with Venezuela. But let it be made very clear that any future cooperation or assistance to the government on this issue will come only after the government engage and recognizes the role of the opposition in this country. So all Guyanese should be aware. We are supportive of our actions to protect our territorial integrity, to ensure our soldiers are safe, to ensure that we denounce the elections in Venezuela. But we are unhappy with a government that continuously promises to implement decisions and fail to do so. the last time we debated, we were to have a proper national public relations program. The president himself told me he was going to undertake it, and it never happened. We have had enough of the government wanting our support when Venezuela acts up, but then apply dictatorial methods to the people of Guyana, depriving them of freedom, depriving them of liberty, and the government operating as if it has the transport for Guyana. We will bring it to an end. There will not be cooperation and support in such an environment. Thank you.
Mr. Doctor, welcome to our broadcast. We've just listened to you give a statement, a very substantive statement on this Venezuela border controversy that we have. But we didn't get here overnight. I won't recount all of it for our audience who know most of it, but I want to bring them from that last meeting you had with Irfan Ali, president of Guyana. The Venezuelans had just had an incursion in the territorial waters of this country, and the president invited you to a meeting to brief you on that issue. Talk to us about what were some of the things that should have come. Talk to us about the meeting, and then perhaps about what some of the things that should have been the outcome from that meeting.
We should go back beyond that to the meeting before. The meeting before, the president and I had discussions. In that meeting, we had agreed that they will do a number of things, particularly a continuous impacting PR program so that Guyanese and the world know all the issues surrounding the case so that the facts are before the people. We had also agreed that it should be continuous, not one-off, and that there was need for a number of diplomatic initiatives to bolster our position. We then went to the parliament. We passed a motion supporting the government and people of Guyana. But nothing happened. When the Venezuelans went close to the platforms that we have out there, the president again called me, and I agreed to meet. When I met him, we expressed concern about the general nature of the country, the things that were happening that weren't correct. In that meeting, Amanzo Walton raised directly the issue of the changing of the chairmanship of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs. And the response was they will convene a meeting and it will be handed over. They never did. When I raised some of the wider issues, the president said we will discuss them. I had anticipated that there will be meetings for us to discuss those issues. Some of them were national in nature, including, if I recall, the question of a clean voters list. Once the Venezuela threat retreated, I did not hear from the president. None of the meetings, no meeting was convened for us to discuss any of the critical issues. On this occasion, I did not hear from the president. The prime minister sent me a note, which I consider to be misplaced because, as far as I know, the Constitution speaks about the president and the opposition leader engagement. So I didn't respond to the prime minister.
This occasion mean the occasion of this impending election concerning Essequibo.
This happened, I received it, I think, last night, or I saw it last night. And I saw this note, well, I was hearing before from reports we had that there was going to be a concert. But I took it lightly because one of the things I discussed with the president is a proper program to educate people. So after I didn't hear, I assumed they were having no program for the 25th. And then I received this note from the Prime Minister, which I didn't respond to, saying that the APNU must identify a contact person for this concert that they have. But I found that ridiculous, that Venezuela is speaking about holding an election in our territory, and our response is going to be a national patriotic concert. It made no sense to me. It came over as ridiculous. I believe that even before we arrive at the 25th, from my engagement with the president, we should have been constantly educating the people of Guyana and saying to them what the situation is and what we are doing. Except for the Home Affairs Minister saying at one time, if anybody vote, they're going to be charged with treason. There's no program whatsoever. So when I got this, I felt this was too much. And more so, this was being done in the context of a Guyana in which the government is seeking to cover up the death of a child. This is occurring in a Guyana in which, though the president promised to engage, there was no engagement. And then out to the blues, you want to bring a motion to the parliament. And the motion asks us to support the government of Guyana. It dawned on me that we can't support the government of Guyana if the government of Guyana has no intention of being inclusive, if the government of Guyana has no intention of ensuring the opposition members that are supposed to be at boards, etc., are there, then we can't engage. The time has come when the government must recognize that if there isn't going to be meaningful engagement, there will be no engagement. We don't want to be window dressing. We come from a political background, especially those of us in the PNC, where from the inception we were handling the Ghana-Venezuela territorial controversy. And we have always had a proper plan. And in our day, while we handle it, all of CARICOM works with us. Latin America, many of the countries were with us because we had a robust foreign policy approach. I recommended in my speech to the parliament that we should have special envoys going to capitals. I recall pointing out that we can take out advertisement in Spanish in papers in Latin America so that people become au fait with the issue. None of that was done. But you come now wanting us to be involved in a concert like if we can sing away the threat or dance away the threat. It makes absolutely no sense. It is in that circumstance that I said, while we support the people of Guyana and Ghana-Venezuela territorial controversy, we cannot support the government which continues to operate without a plan. If Venezuela act, they react. But there is no proactive diplomatic and other plans. We asked them in Parliament for the number of Venezuelans in Guyana. The number they gave us, we know that between Camp Street and Vicinity Road in Border, they got more Venezuelans there than the total figure they gave.
And the figure they gave was 23 persons in Region 4 were Venezuelans.
Yeah, which was ridiculous. So we felt that if something as basic as the data on Venezuelans you don't have, or you're seeking to mislead us on, we can't continue down that road. And that's why we say we'll end the cooperation and support until there's a proper plan and there's the meaningful engagement of the opposition.
So in your estimation, they have been treating this matter very lightly. And I get a sense from you that over the last few instances where you had these infractions by Venezuela, there's a flurry of activity at a given time, and then there's a reverting to the status quo, which is a lackluster approach.
Only time the government becomes active is when there's some form of overt aggression. Between the overt aggression, nothing is happening. So the Ghana population is at sea. And then out to the blues, you get a release from the Ghana Defense Force.
An aircraft has been brought.
Correct. You cannot operate like that. We have to have a plan which speaks to our terrain, the kind of training our soldiers must get, the equipment they need. I think I did mention at one time, there is modern technology that allow us to monitor our borders. Those things we thought were critical, but we're not seeing that from the government. And it is clear that they have no plan. They react to whatever action Venezuela takes. And that cannot be our approach. We need a robust diplomatic approach in which we engage to ensure that people understand the issue and that we mobilize support for the people of Guyana on this critical issue.
Do you think the government has been mobilizing support as you're on that note? Because it seems as though the Venezuelans have outflanked them even with Caribbean leaders.
Yes, it is obvious. Look, we said to them, and I said this in my presentation to Parliament, we have oil resources. There should be the development of a diplomatic approach that allows us to utilize our oil resources to shape foreign policy position and ensure we engage the Caribbean to have their support. We saw the Venezuelans do it with Petro-Caribe, but yet nothing has been done.
Yeah.
So that's our concern.
And we saw that the vice president kind of shut down Trinidad recently, the new prime minister there, wanting to engage with us on oil. I would shudder to think how they're going to support us on Venezuela.
But he can be deceitful, you know. He can appear in public to be shutting it down. And then he's doing his own thing at the bottom. With Jack Dale, you have to monitor everything. What he says doesn't matter. It's what he does. And invariably, what he says contradicts what he does.
So for those persons who are now joining us, we have discussed the fact that the government has not done enough between the last incursion and this very, very serious issue of this election coming up on the 25th. Mr. Norton, we had a chance to revert to the ICJ. They've rehearsed the last judgment that they've given, that the status quo should remain and that Venezuela should do nothing. But Venezuela is all but tossing out. We aren't concerned about that. We're going ahead with these elections.
Well, that is also because there is no robust international program to raise consciousness and help other countries to put pressure to Venezuela so that Venezuela knows that if she misbehaves, then the international community will be up against her. And since the government doesn't have that kind of program, it gives Venezuela the latitude to behave the way they are behaving at present. And I place this squarely at the feet of the government of Ghana. We cannot support a government that has no plan to deal with the aggression from Venezuela. We want a diplomatic solution. We want constant diplomacy. Because our strongest line of defense, if not our only line of defense, is diplomacy. We don't want to put our soldiers at risk. But the government is failing miserably when it comes to putting the necessary things in place to ensure we have a robust diplomatic strategy that will allow us to protect our territorial integrity and sovereignty. The government is more interested in using the Ghana Police Force and the Ghana Defense Force against the people of Ghana. They are quick to claim to have gone to videos
and see who did what. But they could never give you the details of who did what on the borders. And so it sends the signal that our state coercive machinery is to suppress the people of Guyana, not to do what is necessary as it relates to the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. And I want it to be made very clear, we don't want war, we have no interest in war. We can't afford a war. But if we do not do the diplomatic work, we will cause Venezuela to become more brazen, and that is dangerous.
Yeah, let's talk about becoming more brazen. In the recent past, we saw some of our soldiers shot up. We woke up this morning to the news that in 3 different places in our country, our soldiers were attacked by Venezuelans along the border. 3 places. Are these isolated incidents, or is this a concerted effort by Venezuela, you think?
To me, it appears as though the government of Venezuela has civilians operating to intimidate and instill fear. And the government is not holding them accountable. The government is not establishing the link between them and the Venezuelan Defense Force, and sought to make it clear to the international community that these are not isolated people acting. These are people that are in an area that is heavily militarily protected by Venezuela, and they could only get there with the permission of the Venezuelan government and military. So the government should have been proactive and engaging the international community, pointing out to them that these individuals are not operating in their own right. They are clearly agents of the state, pursuing the state's aggressive policies. And there again is where I have a problem with the government of Guyana. They seem not to want to act to, even at minimum, bring to the attention of the international world the link between these gunmen and the state. I don't know that in Venezuela, ordinary people could pass through the military base, end up somewhere in the Cayuni shooting at Guyana Defense Force without the consent of the Venezuelan government. I think it's an attempt to provoke and to initiate conflict. And that is why I'm glad when I saw the Guyana Defense Force dealt with the issue, but avoided getting into a kind of combat, because I do believe that Venezuela is trying to find a spark to be aggressive. And since we are not doing the diplomatic work to protect us from that, that is what is emboldening Venezuela.
Yeah. And talking about that diplomatic work, Mr. Norton, are you concerned that the international stage perhaps is not what it used to be? And in terms of our reliance on the Americans, we see the Americans and their posture with Ukraine, for instance, asking them to give up minerals and this and that for protection. Basically, we see a reluctance even on the part of Putin to come to the table with Ukraine to try to get a peace deal, even though this is what Mr. Trump promised. He could bring them to the table and hammer out a peace deal. And with that also, we saw within the last week, President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, meeting with Nicolas Maduro. This is serious times.
Well, I think the government of Guyana has to recognize that in dealing with the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy, you have to engage and bring diplomatic pressure from all around. When the Chinese said that there should be negotiations between the two, the government should have met the Chinese and say to the Chinese, this will compromise our position. The Geneva Agreement states clearly how we should engage, through which forum. And that should be made clear to the Chinese. You know, the Russians are an ally of the Venezuelans. You still have to engage them to put our position and sought to ensure that they don't become part of a movement against us. So it comes down again to the kind of diplomatic work we should do. The United States has declared its support for us, but the world has changed. There are many other powers in the world. The European Union, for instance, you have to engage and have them on your side. The world is not a uni or a bipolar world anymore. The world is a world with many poles, and as a small sovereign nation, we have got to engage all the powers that be to mobilize them in support of our cause.
So again, this for those persons who now join us, this election for Essequibo is what we're talking around here. Illegal though it is, null and void and of no legal effect. Perhaps that is why this government is so pedestrian on this issue as against being more robust on it. We see the concert as we talked about happening, and then I saw they're going to do flag raising instead of Region 2. They're going to do it in Region 6. What are your thoughts? As you know, Guyanese trying to make sense of all these things.
The government, like I said, has no plan, or there's no evidence of a plan. I think the government doesn't, in some regard, understand what needs to be done. We should be engaging Brazil constantly, keeping Brazil as an ally. Brazil is an ally if only because it has many countries on its borders and it cannot afford a territorial clash. Brazil as an ally allows us to block one flank where Venezuela can come from. The other flank, we have got to prepare our joint services to do whatever is required there to protect us. We're not seeing a situation in which there is evidence that the government did an inventory of what is necessary and seeking to procure them and to ensure that there's the concomitant training so that the soldiers that are operating there can do what they have to do. And this would include ensuring they have mechanisms for adequate supplies of everything the soldiers need at our border. All of those areas we see the government as lax. On the question of the elections, I do not believe Venezuela can hold any elections in Guyana. And so to me, it is symbolic. But we still need to act to let Guyanese understand why they're doing what they're doing and what we as Guyanese need to do to ensure that it doesn't move from symbolic to pursuing reality.
Yeah. And this is the age in which we live, and we just have, again, the reference to the Ukraine and them saying even in any peace talks, the Ukraine is not going to give up any territory it has already taken. Sorry, the Russians are not going to give up any territory they've already taken from Ukraine. And then here we have this meeting with Putin and Maduro, and then this election as absurd as it sounds to us who know the truth of the matter, the 1866 and the 1899 and the 1966 issues, those of us who know it and understand it, it makes no sense to us within that context. But yet, Maduro seems to be emboldened to pursue this course of action.
Let's also remember that Maduro is also seeking to deflect from what is happening in the country. And therefore, the government should know from time to time, Maduro will take these actions, if only to deflect from what is happening in Venezuela. I don't even think the government has an active policy to deal with the Guyanese Venezuelans who are coming home. In one of the discussions, he had assured us that the intelligence was doing what they're supposed to do, but it is evident to all that that isn't happening. And so there's definitely need for a different approach to the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. and to the whole question of settlement of Venezuelans in Guyana.
Yeah.
We need a clear policy.
Yeah. And on that note, you know, we had some figures as an opposition which they had denounced, and they had a very low figure initially 2-3 years ago. We said it was much higher. And then we heard a figure of 40,000. They have not released the census as yet. They had said they were going to do a preliminary report since December. Nothing has come out as yet. We know those figures. 23% of Georgia is not it. Now, I saw somebody in social media this morning showed some security personnel which looked Venezuelan to me, who were working here as a security company. And their thought was the men from Venezuela attacking our army on the border, but the women, you know, looking out for our security interests internally. That was a very, very striking point. Are you concerned about that kind of soft invasion?
You must be concerned. When you're dealing with an enemy like Venezuela, Venezuela is not going to know Venezuelans coming here and they don't put agents among them. It will be foolhardy of them. So the government should assume they are agents, and there should be a program aimed at identifying them and nullifying their effects. And if they are too extreme, ensuring they are out of Guyana. But we're not getting that from the government of Guyana. The government of Guyana only interest seems to be those Venezuelans who could vote, and they hope that they can use them to vote and stay in power. That's basically their only interest. They're not showing an interest in protecting the interests of Guyana.
Yeah. As we have a couple of days before we get up to the 25th, what do you say to Guyanese outside of the government doing anything? I saw the army at Bang talking with residents there. I didn't see any government ministers. Irfan isn't leading. You got folks who live in Region 1, in Batiro, Yarakita. You know, these people tend to be very fearful when these things happen. What do you say to those Guyanese and Guyanese at large?
The first thing we need to do is to put resources in those areas, help to solve the problems so that the citizens there feel that Guyana is the place for them. If their lives are difficult, etc., then you are opening the possibilities for Venezuela to intrude in some fashion. So looking after the interests of those bordering communities, increasing the security and ensuring that the security has the capacity to at least be an initial defense against aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Then it should be obvious that those bordering communities need people who can defend themselves. And so probably the reactivation of a Guyana People's Militia, especially for bordering communities. What I would say to the Guyanese people is that there's no question that Essequibo is ours. That is well established in international law, and we believe the International Court of Justice will confirm it. The next thing I would say to the Guyanese is that you have to be vigilant. You have to be very vigilant. And you also have to be part of the intelligence network to help us decipher what Venezuela is up to. We need to reassure the Guyanese that no elections will be held in our territory. They will have to do whatever they're doing in Venezuela, and therefore it will have no impact on Guyana, except the idea that they would consider themselves to have held elections. And so we need to raise the awareness of Guyanese on all aspects of this situation so that Guyanese know how to react. We have to ensure they are calm but vigilant.
Yeah. Are you surprised? Final question. Are you surprised that we have a couple of days until this infamous activity is going to be held, that the president hasn't taken the opportunity to address this nation, to call on Guyanese to lay out a plan, something, and nothing?
Well,
Radio silence.
more than once I suggested that we need to be outlining an approach to the Guyanese people so that the Guyanese people feel confident that the government knows what it is about. Clearly, the government doesn't know what it's about. The government's sole purpose at this stage is not to use the coercive arm to protect the people and state of Guyana. It is to use it to suppress the people of Guyana. And the more resentment they create internally will affect us. We need at this stage to be a united people with our institutions working and the government playing its role and the opposition playing its role, civil society playing its role in ensuring we keep Venezuela at bay.
Yeah. Mr. Norton, thank you very, very much
Thanks
for your time today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, there you have it, folks. Leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton. Thank you so much. Really and truly, thank you so much. Busy fella, taking a lot of blows from some of you guys. Busy though with the work on the ground and still trying to get information out and keep Guyanese informed. That's going to do it for us at this end. It's just after 9 here in the national capital city where we are. You've been such a wonderful audience this evening, folks, climbing up to 4,300 of you joining us live between Facebook and YouTube. It's a privilege of us to be here with you night after night, and we always get these numbers. Y'all have been so faithful over the past 5 years. Thank you guys so much. November coming, it's 5 years we outside here, folks, bringing you guys valid and credible information. And while some have retreated since the last election, and some people come off a sabbatical and jump from a roof to the ground and so on. We've been here with you folks. We're going to continue bringing you guys the valid and credible information. Thank you guys so much. Share the like before you go. Smash that emoji button, folks. And if you can, you might be able to partner with us as well so we can keep moving forward and doing more of these programs. Thank you very much. That's it from our end. Thank you guys so much for being a wonderful audience tonight. Lovely Lily and Sandrine and Wanda, Joseph, Denise, Ivor, and all the other folks, Carlisle, Eben, Kirk, Linda, all you beautiful folks, Bantu King, Jamal, Lynn, and Angeli. My Lord, there's so many names. Everett, Cheryl, Hazel, Pretty Alicia, Edward, we see you there as well. Folks, thank you so much. You've been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful audience. Again, share the live if you can. Smash that emoji button, good folks. And we're going to see you guys on the next one. Stay safe. That's our time. And that's our program. Stay safe.